This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have a fun panel today on a serious subject, and under different circumstances, I might say that this has the potential to be kind of a cranky panel, but we really don't mean it that way. So we're going to try to have a little fun with this, but maybe a little cranky will show through. So you've been warned, okay? We are going to talk about troubleshooting Internet of Things devices. Kelly and Jeff were here a few weeks ago now. Now it's been a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Internet of Things devices. And since then, we've had various conversations back and forth with each other about some of the problems we faced with ours and how you go about fixing them. We thought it might be good to share some of this. And actually, it's going to be a little bit of a live demo because one of our panelists has a real live malfunctioning IoT device right now, so it couldn't be better. So, to get this started.
It couldn't be better.
It couldn't be better. Mr. Jeff Gamet. Jeff, welcome. It's good to have you, even though your WeMo Switch is not working.
Yeah, well, it's always so much fun to get to do shows with you, Chuck, and especially when it's you and Kelly and me. That's just like a party on my screen. And while it's annoying that I have a WeMo Switch that seems to have taken a dirt nap, I'm actually kind of glad that it happened when it did, because now we have a real world case to work with on the show. Agreed.
And of course, if you didn't get Jeff's reference and the giggle, we have Miss Kelly Guimont back. Kelly, welcome. It's good to have you.
It's so nice to be here, Chuck. I'm really glad to get to sit here with the two of you. It's always a really good time.
Well, this is going to be fun, and I thought between the three of us, because I know I've had a couple frustrations with my devices. Kelly, you've referenced on the show several times that you have a closet in back of you that's full of this stuff. I know Jeff has a reputation for digging into this as well, and of course he has the opportunity to review a lot of things.
This is all Kelly's fault.
Sorry, Jeff.
Every bit of it. It is all Kelly.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
So let's go with Jeff's situation right now. Jeff, you are our real live problem thing right now.
Problem child. You're a problem child, Jeff.
Problem device, not problem child. We're not going to categorize you.
I see. So I'm not a person anymore. I'm just a device.
What devices? What is your device doing that it should not be doing, Jeff?
Well, it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Which is not
deal,
what it should
Jeff?
be doing.
Tell us what's your deal. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what's going on. I have a WeMo Smart Switch that I've been using as actually it's the switch that started all of this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Kelly totally goaded me into getting this quite a while ago.
I did, because it was the magic of IFT. I think that's what I sold you on was you can hook up an IFT channel to like a fan or an air conditioner, and then you can use both of those things in conjunction, and then you don't have to go turn on the AC like a caveman. You can just let the temperature work it out. And so on a day when it snows, you don't have to go turn off the air conditioner because it never turned on. Magic.
Exactly. So the way this ended up working was I bought the switch and I plugged it into my window air conditioner that I was previously flipping a switch like an animal. and then I set up an IFT recipe that checked the local temperature in Boulder, and based on the outdoors temperature would turn the air conditioner on or off. Well, as that turned into an obsession with what can I automate, what devices can I get a hold of, what can I test, and ultimately I got a hold of an Echobee thermostat. And so then I was able to link the Echobee in to the IFT recipe. So now what it does is it uses the Echobee to determine the interior temperature, and then based on that, it turns the air conditioner on or off. The problem is that in the last 2 days, the air conditioner in my office has stopped turning on or off. The one in the bedroom is working fine. And my troubleshooting is telling me that my switch may be dead.
Okay.
Which has actually happened to one of mine. I had it for a lot of years though, so I feel like I got a suitable amount of mileage out of it before it upped and quit. And one thing I want to point out is that there's IFT automation for a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily Internet of Things or home automation sort of equipment. There are certain things that you can set up with IFT. So if you just sort of want something cool to happen in certain cases, you can do that. And so that's the thing I want to point out is that like you can get into some of this without having to go buy a bunch of things. Right. And like you can sometimes, IFT up a little bit of stuff like right there. The first thing. The second thing is with the WeMo Switch, Jeff, what I would like to know what you have tried besides George Carlin's 7 words and possibly kicking. Because those are usually the first things I try are George Carlin's list and percussive therapy.
Okay, so
and Jeff, before you do that, okay, I'm gonna confess to everyone that I too have a WeMo Switch that I'm having issues with. Jeff and I were just testing it before we started the show. So now mine has been a little less consistent as far as why it's not working. It's just at the moment it's not answering Alexa. Oops. Yeah. Well, we're going to trigger a lot of devices, folks. Sorry about that.
I like to call mine Echo Base.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
This is another reason why I love you, Kelly.
So, but my problem apparently has nothing to do with IFT because I'm not using IFT with this. So, it's ironic that Jeff and I are both having WeMo Switch issues. So, Jeff, with that, what have your troubleshooting steps been?
Okay. So the first thing that I did was I took out all of the extra elements that impact how the WeMo Switch works. And to be clear, this is the original model. So it's, the thing that looks like a bar of soap that you plug into an outlet.
Yeah.
Not the newer one that's like the little bar. So what I did was I took IFT out of the equation. I took the WeMo app out of the equation, and I took my Amazon Echo out of the equation. And controlled it manually. So there's a power button on the switch itself. And I press that, and that will manually turn it on or off.
That's good news because it's not dead. So yay.
Well, it's not all the way dead. It's more like Monty Python mostly dead. Yes. So once I knew that the switch would actually function in some manner, then I decided, okay, so the next step is to use just the WeMo app on my iPhone to control the device. And it didn't show up there. The other 2 WeMo switches I have are showing up. I did the thing where I unplugged it, waited, plugged it back in, restarted the WeMo app on my phone, and still nothing. I have what is the app? I have a little app on my Mac that is called WSwitch.
Oh,
And WSwitch sees my other WeMo switches just fine. It does not, however, see this one. So I figured once I got to this point, there's no sense in trying to see if I can do anything with IFT or with Alexa because the device just simply isn't even talking on the network anymore. So it looks like my WeMo Switch has either just stopped talking completely or the Wi-Fi element in it has stopped functioning.
So mine did this once and it fell off the network. That was actually what it was that ended up happening to mine. It just I guess I'm trying to figure out how to say it. It lost the Wi-Fi and just sort of stopped looking. Kids in the Hall sketch. There's nobody home. It was that. So
so maybe my next step is I do a factory reset on this.
Yeah, and there's juju behind it, and I can't remember what. You hold down the button as you plug it in, or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So,
yeah.
Jeff, before we get too far gone here, I want to go back just to one thing you said. You have an app called WSwitch. Why do you have that? Is that a separate WeMo control app? And if so, why do you need a second one if the first one comes from the company?
So I added this app to my Mac. And the reason I have this is because there is no official WeMo app for the Mac. Sometimes I want to control my switches when I'm sitting at my computer without touching my iPhone. And so this is a third-party app, and it works locally only. So I have to be on the network with my WeMo switches, which is typically just fine, because that's where I'm going to be with my Mac when I want to control the switches. So it was, I don't know, a couple dollars, maybe $4, something like that. And it just goes into my menu bar. And then all of the WeMo switches that I have show up, and I can turn them on or off individually or as a group.
Jeff, I think you have to unplug the WeMo, there's a reset
There's
button.
a reset on the back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So hold that down, plug in the WeMo, and it will start flashing amber, and then let go.
Yep. That sounds right.
And then it should start, it should flash amber and green, and that's when it's done resetting itself.
This is interesting. My bedroom switch just stopped showing up.
I think you have an internet problem, my friend. I think your Wi-Fi's are out of whack.
Maybe.
Sorry for all the technical talk, Chuck.
No.
But what would make that suddenly happen when every other device I have is talking fine?
You know what? What I have discovered. Okay, my hunch is, because what I have found at my house is that suddenly a WeMo will fall off the network, and usually it's because something is happening on my network, and it's just that the WeMo switches are the princess to my network's P, and so they're what feel it first and end up falling over. Like, for whatever reason, it's like my WeMos are the finickiest, and then once they lose internet, they really have a hard you really have to coax them back online, is what I have found. So your mileage may vary. I'm betting if you unplug them at whatever it is where you reset the Wi-Fi in them, like unplug it, count to 10, plug it back in. When you do that, see if you get the WeMo own network, when you set it up and you connect to the WeMo switch itself as its own Wi-Fi and give it the right information and reboot that.
I'm to look for that network. Let's see if I have one showing up.
Ask me how I know.
No. I know exactly how you know. Okay, this is funny. No, I don't have the WeMo self-identifying Wi-Fi network, but one of the people around me has named their network 56K dial-up 5G. There's also the Promised LAN.
Oh, that's a good one. I saw one the other day that was Silence of the LANs.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I loved it.
All right, so interesting thing for me about the about the Wi-Fi being finicky. I have seen that in the past when I was using my Airport Extreme base station, because all the data just gets to be all the data, and something can totally satate the line.
Yeah, but you're not on Airport.
Yeah, I've been using an eero. Set up for a while, and that manages the data from all the devices. It keeps things from completely saturating my line, and I haven't had any problems until the last couple days. I find it fascinating that suddenly both of my old style WeMo switches are having trouble. I think at this point. Go ahead.
Yeah. Did your, maybe it's not a channel problem, but a network problem? Like, something happened on the 2.4 and the old switches can't go to 5 by themselves? Am I making any sense? I know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So maybe if all your other stuff is 5, then if the 2.4 network tips over and the only thing that's going to notice is your WeMo switches, then Viola, as the young people say.
Oh, those young people. All right. So what I'm doing is looking to see if I have a 2.4 gigahertz network actually running anymore.
And Jeff, while you're doing that, I want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that I ask this question of you or Kelly. With the WeMo Switch, because this may be a great troubleshooting thing, and it may apply to me right now. If the WeMo Switch is functioning, if it's already paired with your device, should you be able to go to your Wi-Fi settings and still see that WeMo network?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It doesn't show up anymore.
Not because it's already locked in and communicating on its own back channel.
It's almost like Bluetooth pairing. Like the device exists, but you can only see you can only see it when it's in pairing mode and broadcasting its name or whatever. It's the same sort of thing.
Okay.
This is disappointing because Chuck, you had me on 5 questions and you asked me if people want to get started, what should they get? And I said, you should get a WeMo Switch because you don't have to do a whole bunch of gyration in order to get it up and running, which is true.
Right.
So now I feel kind of bad that like both of you have broken
but
troubleshoot. And Jeff's is exactly because of me.
But Kelly, I have to tell you, the WeMo Switch has been like very, very solidly reliable until about the last 3 weeks, and this is only the second time I've had an issue with it. And so I don't know whether something else has changed. I can't think of anything else that I've put in the network mix at the moment. But so it's been a great recommendation and an inexpensive way to dig in.
And that's one of the things I like about it is exactly that. It's not super expensive and you don't have to do a bunch of network admin and you don't have to find a place to plug in that little plastic hub that everything else seems to come with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though I'm having this problem that's now affecting both of my old school WeMo smart switches, I still think it's a good place to start because it's inexpensive and it's easy to play with across several different platforms. So you don't have to commit to anything. Mm-hmm. You can just use the WeMo app and see what you think. You can hook it up to your Echo system if you want, and you can use IFT with other things. It doesn't matter. You can do all different kinds of things. And with the new WeMo switches, and I do have one of those, and it's working just fine.
Oh, good.
That one is HomeKit compatible once Belkin releases their HomeKit bridge, which is coming at some point in the next few months.
But it takes a bridge to do it.
Right. So what they're doing is following in Phillips Hue footsteps. And what Phillips did was they replaced the bridge device for their light bulbs that they had with a new one that's HomeKit compatible. That way you only had to upgrade the one element and all the light bulbs you invested in are still good.
And all the rules and things. I had to do that upgrade and it actually was pretty smooth. So if you did buy an old kit and ended up with a round hub and you want to upgrade to the square one, which is HomeKit compatible, that process overall is pretty smooth. So
it was very smooth for me.
Yeah. So I want to share with you my favorite as I sit here in 75-degree weather and Jeff sits there wishing his air conditioner would turn on again. I want to share with you that my favorite IFT WeMo setup is for Christmas lights. I set one up to impress small people in my life, people shorter than me. And the way that I do that is I hooked up my WeMo Switch. I plugged the lights for the Christmas tree into the switch, and then I plugged that in, and it has its own name. And there's a phone number that you can get from IFT so that when you text if this then that, something will happen. So I set it up, and I gave that phone number the contact name of Santa Claus in my contacts. And so then I can go to my phone and I can ask my phone, hey, my phone's assistant's name, tell Santa to turn on my Christmas lights. And then she says, okay. And then I send the message and the tree comes on. And people shorter than me tend to be younger than me, and they think it is amazing. And it is the best thing to get to pull out my phone. And now by extension, I can do this with my Echo unit too. Tell Santa to turn on my Christmas lights. Tell Santa to turn off my Christmas tree. And it totally works because it doesn't matter what you text. So as long as you've got like the other pieces of name the contact Santa Claus for the IFT number, which is also funny because there's only one. So like all of my press releases from Apple, I get an IFT message for that from Santa that says Apple's released a new phone, or whatever.
That's awesome.
That's if you think about all of the other pieces that go into making some of this stuff happen, you can do stuff like that. That's really fun. Like, is it pointless? Oh yeah, because I could just open the app and go turn on the lights, turn off the lights, and I don't need to send anybody a text message. But what fun is that?
Right.
Yeah, if it makes you smile, you found the point.
Then it worked, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, so I want to get back to troubleshooting, especially since we have Jeff's live thing here. Jeff, again, as we were prepping for the show, you were talking about some of the things you've done. So one of the things you did, you changed outlets for the device, which I thought was a great idea.
Yep. The reason I did that is because sometimes outlets just go bad.
Right.
And I've had it happen. Actually, I had it happen just a couple months ago, where an outlet that's on the other side of this wall over here in a hallway just stopped working. And I have a couple cameras set up there that I'm testing, and both cameras stopped working. So replace the outlet, and everything's fine again. So that's always an early test thing for me.
Yeah.
Try a different outlet, see what happens.
Okay.
especially if you live in a building, or if the place that you live maybe isn't very new. Like I had a couple unreliable outlets in our old house. It was built in the 40s, and there were certain places where if you plug that in there, like it doesn't get enough power on that circuit in order for that to charge or whatever it was, So there's, depending where you live and how old the electrical system is where you live, like that's always a really nice thing. I know another time in our old house, I don't remember what it was, but it was something that should have been pretty inert. Like I plugged in a lamp, or I plugged in an alarm clock or something, like nothing. It wasn't like a 220 outlet or something like that. And I plugged it in and blew a circuit, and didn't know like that all of the other stuff that was on that circuit, because there was one outlet in another room that ended up being on the same circuit. And I was like, why is my outlet dead? So, and like everybody's house has some weird thing like that. It seems like their house or their apartment or whatever. And, and so that's always another thing to consider is, and the bonus points to Jeff for only changing the outlet and seeing if that made any difference. Because when you change 10 things and stuff starts working, you don't know what the problem was, so you don't know how to solve it.
I always change one thing at a time.
Yep. Okay, so one of you along this conversation mentioned quitting the app and restarting the app, which is intriguing because I didn't think that my WeMo Switch had anything to do with my app once I had it paired, other than the ability maybe to turn it on and off.
Well, those are the big things. But let's say your Switch stopped talking and then started talking again, and the app didn't catch that. Like maybe it's only checking periodically to see if a device is there. And so you're looking at the screen and it says, no, the device isn't there, but maybe it really is. Odds are the app is telling you the truth. But if you quit the app, that's the thing where you double tap on the home button and then swipe up on the app to make it go away. Then, unless you're in iOS 11, in which case you tap the little X to make it go away, then you don't know for certain. So that's an easy way just to make sure that the app is actually really looking for the devices when you think it is.
And specifically in the WeMo app, there's two ways to sort of kick it to make it look again for those devices. And the first is when you look at the device and it says not available, there's a little refresh, the little circle arrow next to it. And you can do that to refresh and sort of make it look again. But then also there's a list of WeMo switches in the app when you first launch it. And if you pull down and pull to refresh, sometimes one of those works where the other one doesn't.
Yes. And of course, I tested both.
Yeah.
And no such luck.
Because I remember telling you that, Jeff, ages ago when I was like, I found this out and you need to know. Because
and it's a very handy
happens.
thing.
If something ever happens to your Switch, you need to know that. Yeah.
Okay. So this is, I restarted my WeMo app, and I don't know if you can see that, folks, but I get basically a home start screen. Okay. It's not apparently seeing my WeMo Switch at all.
So as far as your app is concerned, you actually don't have any functioning WeMos around.
Right.
Yeah, la 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 la. That's
Right.
where it's at now.
And so something has kicked it. Either it's completely lost the connection, the Wi-Fi has died, or something, because it's sitting over here. I know it's plugged in, but I also know it's not responding to this, and therefore it's not going to respond to Alexa.
Correct.
Yeah,
So-
and I don't know if you can see my screen at all. Trying
There we
to hold
go.
it at. There we
Yeah.
go. So you
Right.
can see I have one device that's showing up, and the other two are saying not detected.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can refresh the not detecteds, but if you pull down, you get a different refresh. I had that problem where I have some of those branches in a vase that have the little lights on the ends, and they're plugged into one, so they go on at sunset, and they were supposed to be on, and I looked and they were on, and I thought it was supposed to be time for them to come on, and they hadn't yet. So I opened the app, and I looked at it, and it said light sticks not detected. And then I waited, and then they kicked on, and I'm like, how? And that was how I found out that there was this other disconnect that I could be using instead, because the pull to refresh is a slightly different mechanism somehow. So then it showed up, and it was like, oh, you mean the light sticks? They're right here. The other tip I would give you for the switches, particularly if you have more than one, is that A, you can rename them in the app, and B, you can add a little picture of it to the app. So particularly if you're going to put these in places where it's inconvenient to turn on something or turn off something, or it's going to be someplace hard to reach, it's really nice to not just have it be WeMo Switch, WeMo Switch 2, WeMo Switch 3, because you don't always know which one it is. And then that also helps you, like in this case with Jeff's, where one is failing, it's very clear which one that is, and it makes it a lot easier to find them again later.
It's also really important if you're going to do other automation things, like with the WeMo skill for the Echo, or if you're using if this then that, because all of your WeMo devices will show up with the custom names you've assigned in those various places. And that makes it so much easier when you go to set something up. First, you know what device you're actually controlling. And then second, if you're using, say, your Echo, and you give it a command to say, like trigger the office AC on. Okay. That, for me, that would work, assuming the switch worked, because this WeMo Switch is called Office AC.
Okay.
And that's a lot easier and more natural than to say Echo thingy, trigger WeMo Switch 7 on.
Yeah. And then remembering, because a lot of times the reason that you want to be able to activate these easily on your phone or easily with your voice is so that you don't have to go through a bunch of gyration. And if you have to stand there and remember what number the one is for the coffee maker, that's no fun for anybody. So that's part of where the naming comes in. It also helps you when something goes wrong, you're able to narrow that down pretty quickly. And you can do something like Jeff has done, where you compare it with the other switch and find out, oh, my other old one is doing the same thing.
Which is kind of funny, because that happened right before we started recording. That's when that one dropped off. But the thing is, now that I think about it, I don't think my air conditioning in my bedroom has been turning on as reliably as I expected in the last 2 days. But here's the one thing that changed in the bedroom, which would make me, up until this point, think that it was acting as it should. My Echobee remote switch or sensor, which sits in the bedroom so that I can control the air conditioners independently, that I had set, without thinking about it, right up against the Echobee hub that's in that room. So the heat radiating off of the Echobee
Is
hub
screwing it up.
was raising the temperature of that. And so my air conditioner was turning on more often than it should, and not turning it off, and not turning off when it should. So I moved that sensor away from the Echobee, and now I'm thinking by coincidence, because there's no way that moving a sensor away from
I doubt it.
from the Echobee would suddenly cause two WeMo switches to stop appearing on the network.
Right.
But I don't have an air conditioner at all, and it was 101 degrees here yesterday, and I'm kind of envious right now that you could be sleeping in a server room.
Well, I was up until a couple days ago.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Okay.
It is.
One of the things that's interesting to me about having to troubleshoot this stuff is because I'm a person who's done a lot of tech support for a lot of different things for more years than I'm prepared to actually admit to on the internet. And it's kind of all the same sorts of steps. And so it feels like it's really intimidating because it means you're sitting in the dark as opposed to having the lights on, or in Jeff's case, maybe you're much sweatier than the level to which you have become accustomed. And the problem is, like, it sometimes is hard because you're not troubleshooting like a mail program or something funny happening with your phone that shouldn't really be happening, because you sort of feel like you can go about the rest of your life and it's not a big deal, right? But so it feels sort of intimidating because, like, as a scale, like, if I can't run the hue lights in my house anymore, there are big bunches of my house that are just dark, and that's just the way it is. And so, like, it feels sort of intimidating to try and troubleshoot like the lighting on an entire floor of your house. I get that, but it's still the same sort of steps. Change a thing, see what happens. Can you restart it? Do you have someone you can call to help talk you off that ledge when something goes completely off the rails? Like, those are still all the same steps that you need, like, regardless. And so it feels more intimidating, but it's still all the same process. When was it working? When did it, how closely can you narrow down the window to when it stopped? Once it stopped, how do you, do you notice anything that changed, around the window of time when it stopped? And, do other, like in Jeff's case, he has a second WeMo switch. If he plugs that WeMo switch in where the office AC is, the one that's really working, and plugs it into the office air conditioner, does that change anything? And if he takes the other one and plugs it in the bedroom where it's got an actual thing that's regularly controlled, does that help? And, like, those things are still all the same things. And I remember being really intimidated when I started when we plugged a bunch of stuff in and things started going wrong, because it happens. I remember trying to dig into that and being really intimidated. Like, how do I troubleshoot my house? And, like, it turns out if it's got a USB port and it's got an IP address, it's all the same troubleshooting I've been doing for all these years anyway. It's just that instead of a computer, instead of it being a computer screen, it's a light. It's a light. It's a television. It's an echo unit. It's a, whatever it is. Like, it's still all the same sort of steps, and it helps to sort of frame that sometimes when you're trying to figure out your approach vector to solve a problem.
Okay. So I want to move away from the WeMo, first of all, because we don't want to pick on the WeMo Switch, but more importantly, the WeMo Switch is just that. It's a switch, okay? So it can control whatever you plug into it, and it's a little bit different kind of troubleshooting. And I'm going to move us to the U light bulbs, because that is a little bit different, because there you have a hub. And so I guess, are there anything additional that you would recommend for folks with a hub?
The first thing I do when something goes wonky with my hue lights is I power cycle the hub.
Okay, now.
Yep, me too.
Now, when you power cycle the hub, I want to make real clear, because I made this mistake early on. That does not mean you're shutting down any settings or any relationships or any scenes or anything. It's just you're literally just
I pull the power
cycling.
cord from the hub.
Okay.
And I wait 10 seconds and I plug the power cord back into the hub and let it boot back up and then see what happens. And I'd say the majority of the time, whatever's been wonky with my hue lights isn't anymore.
Okay. And is that a procedure you would use for pretty much any hub?
Oh yeah. My assumption is when Belkin's HomeKit hub comes out, if I have issues with that at any point, first thing I'll do is power cycle it.
Yeah.
I do that with all the different hub-like devices I have. I have a Lutron Cassetta bridge, because I have some of their smart light switches as well. And if I ever have a problem with those, which isn't hardly ever, then I'll just power cycle that. It's interesting. The hub for the Lutron switches, it's so reliable that I almost never think about the fact that I have it. And if the lights stop working, it takes me a minute to think about going and power cycling that, because my first thought is, when did these lights burn out? But with the Hue, that's where the big problem comes in, or more often a problem comes in.
So I have a ton of hubs. For me, that's part of where my smart home fatigue comes from. Is I have an 8-port switch in this closet right now that's out of ports, and I need more ports. And I've started looking at what do I buy that's bigger than an 8-port switch. And I'm starting to look at rack-mounted hardware, and I'm starting to wonder why I wouldn't just go with a rack-mounted switch in my house.
But you're an extreme case, Kelly.
But I'm not, like, really, because that closet has a NAS in it, and an Apple TV, and a TiVo, and all those things need Ethernet. They need internet connectivity of some sort. And with something like TiVo, it's nice to give it Ethernet because it's downloading regularly. It's nice to give the Apple TV Ethernet because it's downloading regularly with those screensavers and stuff, because I have a 4th gen, so it's downloading stuff on the regular. I have a number of things that would like internet connectivity. And so, it was easy to just give them Ethernet. I'm going to have to start re-examining like what all needs to be cluttering up the Wi-Fi network for all the, with all the other wireless devices in my house. So I have a lot of hubs. And so let's see. It's not really a hub, but I have the device that I bought aftermarket from Chamberlain so that I can run the garage door opener with my phone, which is super cool, super reliable. It's one of the ones that is like Jeff's Lutron hub. Like if I can't open the door with the app, I assume it's because the internet is down, not because something has happened with the hub. So I have that hub. I have a SmartThings hub. I have a home automation brain called Vera from a company called Mi Casa Verde. It's network agnostic, so I know we're not going to dig too deep into that stuff, but there's a few different communication protocols that different companies are using. And this one communicates with all of them, which is why we bought it, was so that whatever we ended up deciding to go with, if we were going to buy a bunch of addressable light switches or power outlets or something, that it wouldn't matter which ones we decided to buy because the brain would operate all of them. So I have the Smart Hub, I have Vera, I have one called a Keen Home Hub, which goes with Smart Vents, which are currently my favorite actual useful smart home thing we can talk about a little bit. I have a Hue Hub. I have
you basically
something else
have
has a hub that I can't remember. Yeah, there's another one that's in there that I just am not remembering right now. And not always even is it the hub so much, but sometimes the device itself. So like in this case, the WeMo Switch, unplug it, count, and then plug back in. What I tend to do when
wait, Kelly, you plug and unplug what? The hub?
No, the device, like with the WeMo. Yeah, with the WeMo that doesn't have a switch, or like a couple of times when we've gotten a new Hue bulb, it like wouldn't show up for whatever reason. To get added to the hub so that we could control it, and unscrew it and screw it back in, or screw it into a different socket. Like almost every time it totally sorted itself out just by doing that. Not often do I have to go to the device itself to fix that, but it's a good thing to remember. Like when you're trying to troubleshoot is, like if the rest of the lights work, but this one won't turn on and off, unscrew it and screw it back in and see if that makes any difference. Because what's funny to me is that the stuff that's really useful is like the least interesting stuff to tell people about. So like the most interesting home automation is the stuff that I already told you about, hooking up IFT to turn on the Christmas lights with a text message. Like that's really interesting and fun, but like the least useful thing I do with any of the smart home stuff in my house. So but all that stuff is not very cool, like I have one of the lights that is set to geofencing so that when I come in the house, if it's dark, when I come home, it turns on the overhead light. So I never have to come home to a dark house, And I never have to leave a light on 24 hours a day on the off chance I leave in the daytime and come back at night. It just comes on. If I need it, it comes on. And then that's all I have to do. And then when I go to bed at night, I tell my Echobase to turn off all the lights and it's taken care of. So that's the kind of stuff that I think, sometimes like we complain about it and things break and I have a lot of frustration about trying to get disparate systems to work together. That's usually where my problem has been. And honestly, that's one of the places that my Echobase has shined, is because I can basically add a skill to the Amazon unit. And it sort of reminds me of that bit in The Matrix where Keanu Reeves shakes his head a little bit and opens his eyes and goes, "I know Kung Fu." That's what it feels like to put a new skill on the Echo unit, because I went and looked and I'm like, hey, there's a WeMo Switch, and I added it, and now I can run all the stuff just by telling my Echobase what to do.
I think we should try and troubleshoot Chuck's Echo problem.
Chuck has an Echo problem?
Chuck has an Echo problem.
Well, Chuck has a weird. See, I think.
Tell me about your Echobase, Chuck.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a total of 5 Phillips Hue bulbs. Okay, I have 2 white in the bedroom that function flawlessly, no problem, with Siri and with Echo as well. So I can use either one. My living room, I have the color bulb starter pack, and if I use Siri to tell it to change the colors, it works like a champ every time. If I use Alexa to tell it to change the color, it says not supported.
Sorry, I don't know that.
And
see, there you go.
There she is, yes.
Proof.
Yes.
Now,
All right.
I went to read about this and I didn't think that you could.
That's something that was added in the last 3 months, 4 months.
It's supposed to be 3 or 4 months
Something
ago,
like that.
because I think you and I
Okay.
talked about it, Jeff, and I sent you the article and said, "Oh, guess what?" And yet I've never
Right.
been able to do it.
And so I went ahead and started doing it with my Hue lights. And interesting thing for me, Chuck, is that I am having a problem as well, but it's not the same problem as you. My problem is I will tell my Echo to set a specific light to a color, and it will do it or not. But if it doesn't do it, it will say okay, thinking that it just did. I'll tell it Alexa, set the living room light to blue, and she just said okay.
Now,
and I'm
see,
looking at the light.
Mine
it's
does
off.
that. Mine does that, but not when I'm trying to change color. Like I'll say, turn on the bar lights, and she goes, okay, and I'm still sitting there in the dark.
So, but that's a different problem than what Chuck is having, because for Chuck, it's just not showing up at all.
Yeah, I feel like that's.
feature.
I feel like it's disappointment for me on all fronts, because I can't even, every once in a while, I can't get her to do the right thing.
So
what have you tried? What have you tried, Chuck?
I've tried a number of things. I've tried updating the app. I've tried making sure the app is updated. I've looked for firmware updates. I have plugged and replugged.
Firmware updates for what? The Echo or
And
the Hue?
which app?
For everything.
Okay.
For everything. I mean, I've gone through, like you said earlier, Jeff. I've kind of gone through the whole troubleshooting process. Probably the only thing I haven't done, because inevitably when I'm actually starting to do this, I'm turning things on and off, and then the bulbs get hot. I've never tried to unscrew the bulbs completely.
Have you uninstalled the skill and reinstalled it?
Before you go
believe I
that
did.
far.
I believe I did early on.
Okay, funny thing, I just figured out why Alexa may have thought she turned on my Hue light and said okay, but nothing happened. My Hue, totally by chance, is in the middle of updating the bridge firmware. So it's
Interesting.
actually not on my network right now.
Okay, so in the Alexa app, there's another thing. Oh, it's all different now. You can tell how much I use it. Where did it go? Okay, so there used to be, in the old version of the app, you would go to Smart Home, and then it would be like, you have however many 100 devices, and then it would say like Discover.
Oh yeah.
And if
you
you
haven't
do
done the Discover
that,
thing.
Sometimes that'll kick it without having to undo the skill and redo the skill and let it download a bunch of crazy crap. That's been my only frustration with the Phillips bulbs is lots of other stuff can create a scene or do specific things with the lights, like turn half of them red and half of them green or whatever. And when you do those, some of them get sort of uploaded as part of your Philips Hue account. And then all that stuff gets downloaded by Alexa. So,
yeah,
sorry,
I'm gonna
guys.
take that a step farther, Kelly, and say it's not a sometimes thing. You have to go in and let your Echo rescan all your devices when something gets changed.
Yes, you absolutely do.
And if it doesn't, then it's not going to see whatever device you expect it to see.
Okay, Jeff,
Right.
Explain rescan for the folks who are just getting into this.
So what you can do is use your Echo trigger word and then say scan for new devices. And then it should automatically do that. If it doesn't, then you can go into the Alexa app and go to where the devices listing is. And one of the options that you'll find there is discover devices. Tap that, and then depending on how much stuff you have in your smart home setup, it may take it a few seconds or a couple minutes, but it's going to go through and find everything, and it will find everything that's already there. But if something has changed, like there's a new device or you changed a device name, then it will rediscover that device. It will update its own database, and that will fix a lot of things that aren't otherwise talking.
Okay. Interesting.
So if you look at the app, actually, let me show you. So when you are when you're in the Alexa app, you can go to the smart home, and then it'll look like this in the new app. You'll see it. It looks kind of like that. And then when you tap on devices, you can go all the way to the bottom, because I literally have like 108 devices in there. I'm not even kidding. Yes, showing 108. Because I download an app and I create like a couple little groups to do different stuff with. And then that gets added as like, it says it's a device, but it's not really a device. And so I end up with a bunch of clutter. So then at the bottom, you can see that you get the option to discover. And every so often, it's a good idea to do that and let it find all that stuff again, because maybe that's the reason that it's having trouble with your lights, is it thinks they're there, but it's not really talking to them for whatever reason. Because I've had that happen with mine. Both directions. Like I'll say, Echobee3 turn off all the lights, and it will go, okay, but all the lights are still on. Or I will tell it to turn on some lights, and it says okay, but nothing happened. And that's when I know I need to come down here to my discover button and hit it. And then after I do that, most of the time, only I think once was it ever like hosed up hard enough that I had to go uninstall the skill and then install the skill again.
One thing,
but that's the next step.
One thing that I think is interesting, and I have been falling prey to it, is I tend to think that if there's going to be an update to let's just say the Philips bulbs or the Philips app, that it'll come through the App Store, when in fact it's not. I have to fire up the app and say, oh, there's an update available, and I'm going to download it directly, which I guess is okay. I mean, it feels like it feels in some weird way like it violates security for the Mac App Store, or for the iOS App Store.
Well, partly, it feels weird to have to learn a new habit. To have to go, I know I have to go launch the Hue app once a week or whatever, because if you spend most of your time, either you've automated a bunch of the lights so you don't spend a bunch of time turning them on and off regardless, in an app, or you do most of your interaction with them through some sort of assistant, whether it's the one in your phone or the one in an Echobee, then you end up not launching the app near as often. Like now that I can tell all my lights to turn on and off, I barely ever launch that app. And so almost every time I launch it, like I had to set a calendar reminder to do it every so often, because otherwise that update just sits there. And those updates are security updates to make things more safe. They're to resolve an issue, to close a hole, to do all kinds of stuff that's super useful. But when the App Store update isn't the thing that updates the hub or whatever, then it gets sort of I have the same problem with that, where I feel like it's sort of frustrating. And the only good thing about setting the calendar reminder is that I have one that says like launch the Hue app and check for updates, and it reminds me like, oh, I have, I need to do the same for the WeMo and for, this app and that app that also do the same sorts of things. So what I wish is that there was a better upgrade program. So, for example, Chuck, you have the colored Hue lights, and I too have colored Hue lights, and I have some that approximate green because they're like the second generation of the light bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I want third generation that don't approximate green and actually show you green, I'm out. There's no like trade-in. There's no like exchange program or anything like that. Like I just sort of have to go, maybe I can gift my parents the less green ones, because I like to play discotheque in the basement and I want greener lights than I have. Like I want the ones that have a better spectrum. So like maybe I can pawn these off on someone else who doesn't use them that much and isn't going to be super bummed about what color green they are. Like that sometimes is my only option. And I would rather like send them into Hue, and then Hue gives me a discount. Like I get $20 off new ones because I was an early supporter of the old ones or something. And they did that with the hub. And I sometimes wish that other devices had that option, like with the WeMo switches. Now that they make one that doesn't cover up both outlets if you plug it in the bottom, like it would be nice if I could maybe upgrade in some fashion.
Yeah, honestly, I can see it both ways. I absolutely see your point. But I also kind of see their point that you've been using these lights for all this time. You might have been using them for an hour a day or 18 hours a day. And so, what are you getting back? I guess my version of that would be first of all, if it really bothered me, I might take those lights and repurpose them to another room where I'm not going to necessarily need the color changing thing.
Right.
I personally have found one thing that I seriously doubt I will buy another colored Hue light, because I just don't find them, for me, that useful, because I don't play discotheque anywhere. So,
that's on you, Chuck.
Yeah, well, that's true. But, some of the dimmable part, now that's another matter. But I think there is now a Phillips Hue that is white but dimmable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
that's what I have.
It's white on a spectrum. Yeah, it's white on a spectrum as well. So you get like
the
bluish white and the warmer white like in the same bulb. So like sometimes when you're reading and you want it to be a little more chill, you can shift it back and forth. We have some of those, and I really do like them for that reason. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I think everybody should probably get a color starter pack just to play with it, and if it's your thing, great. But I just find that I'm not using it that much.
I came into Hue from the other direction, and I got the white starter pack because it costs less. So I got 2 of the white bulbs, and I got the Hue hub. And this was before they changed it, where you also get the switch, the remote switch with it. But that was
okay. You get a switch in the starter kit now?
Yeah, the white one.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I had 2 bulbs that I could experiment with and decide if this was something that I wanted to invest more in. Then when I came to the conclusion that yes, I do, that's when I started buying the color bulbs. So I have the 2 whites that I had, and now I have a handful of color bulbs that I'm using in various outlets around my place. And I really like that. It's been pretty cool so far. But I'm going to jump this totally back to the troubleshooting of my WeMo Switch real quick.
Please.
So while we've been talking, I'm sure everyone's noticed that I'm periodically, my head's down. It's because I've been going through all the different apps on my iPhone for controlling all the different smart home things. And now I'm thinking that I have a problem somewhere else, and it manifested itself first in the WeMo switches. Because my Echobee thermostat is showing up for me when I look at it in the Echobee app, but it's not showing up in the HomeKit app or the Home app.
So yeah, so it's the princess in the coal mine.
Right. So I have control over my Echobee, but not in all places. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm having some weird HomeKit problem. I don't know, but that shouldn't affect the WeMo switches. But through my troubleshooting, one of the things that I do is I go and I start looking to see, am I having problems with other devices? And if so, what those problems are. Now that I'm seeing that I have devices from different manufacturers that both seems to be having some sort of network connectivity issue, now I need to expand my troubleshooting to include my network on a broader scale.
Yep.
So
go unplug your eero and count to 3.
Which I would do, except I just suddenly wouldn't be on the show anymore. So my troubleshooting is kind of over until we're done recording the show. And then I can kill the the eero, reboot it, and see what happens.
And one of the things that I've actually liked is being able to sometimes come at it with a different application. So, like, I've had sometimes where the WeMo app wouldn't do it, but I have a widget installed that will let me run the WeMos with a switch on the lock screen, and sometimes that will still work and be like, okay, that's like. I can still get to it across the network. I can tell that the network is working, all of that. In some cases, you can also look at the network in reverse. So like the router on the router I have has a list of devices on the network, and it will show you the MAC addresses. And the MAC address is printed on the back of the WeMos. So you can tell, like, well, at least I can still see that it's on the network. It hasn't fallen off entirely. I can see that it's still there. So that's been another way that I've been able to troubleshoot some things, is like, well, when I plug this in that room, it has a harder time connecting to the Wi-Fi. So it sort of comes and goes on the network on the MAC address list. So that's another thing that you can do to look, is sort of come at it the other way. Like, my WeMo says it's not on the Wi-Fi. What does the Wi-Fi say about the WeMo? And come at it from a different direction. Because I had one time where, for whatever reason, the Hue hub fell off the network, and then it wouldn't come back.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, Kelly. And I did check in the eero app, since I'm using the eero mesh setup. It says it sees all 3 of my WeMo switches. So the one that I know is on the network, and the 2 that don't appear to be on the network.
The 2 that don't. Yeah. So that's and that's another thing to check. And you can usually, like, for most stuff, you can refresh that list, because I know sometimes it doesn't update. It hasn't necessarily updated really recently. So, like, Jeff, in your case, if those 2 are in fact off the network, never to be seen again, if you hit refresh, you might suddenly drop 2 devices from your setup.
Well, let's go check right now. That's
in this case. In this case, maybe not. But like, I have found with mine, I'll be like, well, it says it's on the network, and I'll start beating my head on network troubleshooting, and then, go hit refresh, or like I sign out of the browser and I sign in another browser, and somehow that's a thing that will kick the network list, and it'll go, yeah, what are you talking about? Those 2 aren't here. They were never here. What do you mean? And so that's another way to sort of check that.
Yep, that they are both on the network, as is the Echobee, which, since I can already talk to the Echobee, at least through some apps, I know that's fine. All right. So my mystery is still a mystery, but at least I have more data points to work with as I sort through why I have these devices that aren't speaking reliably anymore. Okay, so we're way over time, but which is no surprise, because this has been good, because folks, this is what you got to go through if you really want to pin some of this stuff down. But I did want to ask you both about one last thing. And Jeff, I sort of did earlier, but you gave me a Mac reason. So I'm just going to restrict this to iOS. Okay. There are definitely multiple apps out there to control your IoT devices. I think there's one that is brilliantly called Home, which is I think is pretty good. Mm-hmm. But I also get torn with, okay, let's see now. I've got a WeMo app, and I've got an Amazon Echo app, and I've got the Phillips app, and let's see what, and then I've got, of course, HomeKit.
Now, I understand that if I'm using HomeKit, obviously I have to use a HomeKit app. Same thing with some of the Amazon stuff. Do I need an app like Home? Do I need any other iOS devices, iOS apps to control these devices? Or does that just complicate the whole troubleshooting process?
Well, it depends. So the Home app you're talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about the $15 app, not Apple's Home app, which came after the third-party Home app.
Correct.
The $15 Home app is great. I love it.
It's called Looming now, by the way.
No, it's still Home.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. See, that's the problem. There's all these apps that have similar names. I know what you're talking about.
This is the one you said, yeah, you should totally get it. It's totally worth it. I thought it was that one. And I thought it was Home, and now it's called Looming.
No, let's see. It's still the Home app. There we go. You can see it up in the corner.
The yellow one.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow.
Oh, the iOS Home app. Yeah.
The iOS Home app. Yes.
Yeah,
So anyhow.
That's not the same as this one. Yeah.
Something like that $15 Home app, I really like it because I think it's a better and more reliable interface for HomeKit in general. And so I use that instead of Apple's Home app whenever I can. So what it comes down to is if there's an app that has an interface that for you works better than the official app that a company released for their products, then use it. That's great. It doesn't necessarily increase complexity because what I do is keep all the native apps, the manufacturer's apps tucked away in a folder on my iPhone. And then I use whatever other app that I prefer. And if I need to troubleshoot and I have to go beyond the apps that I prefer to use, I can always fall back to the manufacturer's apps for additional testing.
Okay. Sounds good. Kelly, would you echo that? I mean, or
that would be yes and no. Yes for the troubleshooting piece, and yes for it's always a good way. Like it's a good way to test if the WeMo apps are working if the WeMo switches are working is to use the WeMo app to try to talk to them. I have found that there are other apps that have added other functionality, which is functionality that I like. For example, I will just open this folder that's like 4 pages full of apps that I use to run stuff at my house. I have the Keen Home app specifically because I can use that to keep a better eye on the vents. So there's these vents, and what they will do is they will adjust depending on the heat in the room, and they work with the Echobee. So the Echobee sensor, for example, will say that in the office where I'm sitting, it will say it's 65 degrees in here. Let's say it's wintertime because I only have heat. I don't have an air conditioner. So it's 65 degrees. It needs to be warmer in here, but it's already outside of the door over there. So it will close the vents in the basement and it will open the one in here so that more heat comes in here so that this room becomes an acceptable temperature again. So they're super cool because they do that. And I like that because my house and everything gets heated really unevenly because the only sensor in the olden days was the thermostat in the middle of the center floor, which is not the same temperature it is upstairs, which is not the same temperature it is downstairs. So it really helps even that out between the Echobee and the smart vents. My house was way more comfortable last winter than ever before. So I was super excited about that. So that's one that I use a lot. I have Hue apps. So I also have this app that's called Ambify. And the thing that I love about this is one of the ones that's totally frivolous that I've told you guys about already. There's a number of Hue lights in the room on the other side of this wall. And there are giant speakers in the room on the other side of this wall. And I can AirPlay music to the big speakers. And then the lights in the basement will change color to the music. So
now, are they getting that signal to change the color based on a microphone somewhere, or are they just intercepting the data stream that makes up the audio?
They're intercepting on my phone.
Okay.
So it's analyzing the Ambify app has its own player. So you add songs to the player in the app, and then it analyzes like the wave, and then you can tell it like I only want them to be green and blue, or I want all the colors, or I want them to only change when it's like there's a sensitivity scale as well. So Chuck, earlier when I told you playing discotheque, like I wasn't kidding. Like on the other side of this wall, that's totally what happens in my house on a regular basis. So like I said, like the stuff that there's stuff that's fun, and then there's stuff that's useful, and like there's if it were a Venn diagram, they would be two circles. It wouldn't overlap at all. So like some of the stuff that I use is stuff like that. And it's nice, like if Ambify isn't working for some reason, the colors aren't changing or the music isn't being picked up, I can always open up the Hue app and then use the Hue app to tell, like, can I change that light? Can I change the color of that light? Can I turn it on and off? Can I do some of these other things? And then like in Jeff's example, for the one that he has on his menu bar, one of the, like, I know a number of people who have, and I in fact know someone who wrote, I think it was the Nest menu, to adjust the thermostat while sitting at your computer, because sometimes you're at your computer and your phone isn't there with you. And like, you have to find the things that work for you, I think. But I also like don't want to put people off of investing a little bit of time in some of the workflow stuff and like some of the scenes. Like we've heard the examples of telling your phone good night and certain stuff happens, or telling your phone good morning and certain stuff happens. Like spend a little time and sort those things out, because it's pretty great. And look through the preferences in the apps. Like one of the things that happens at my house is at a certain time every day, the hot water boiler comes on so that I can have coffee or tea, once I'm out of bed and ready. Like the water's already hot. I don't have to stand there and wait for it to heat up. Like, and it's a very small thing, but it's a thing that saves time in my day, because I don't have to stand there and wait for the right temperature to get coffee or tea or, whatever I'm looking for. So
this has been a much different kind of MacJury. But I like it. I mean, I hope that people find it interesting and informative, and maybe gives them some idea of some of the things they can go through to get their devices working. And I absolutely don't want this to put anybody off of Internet of Things devices in a big way, because the convenience is absolutely there. We may not be the three best people. I'm probably the least automated of the three of us, and I look around at how much stuff I've gotten into, and Kelly, I think it's your fault. But
it tends to be me, because I have been a cheerleader for the basic stuff for years. Like when we first moved into this house, we had a long lead time before we actually moved in. So it was pretty easy to come in and like run Cat 5 into this closet, because I knew that a bunch of electronic equipment was going to live there. And I had the opportunity to do some research on home automation brains and find out like what would be a good one to put in. And I had the opportunity to set some of that stuff up from the beginning. So for me, like, I still sort of feel like I'm an edge case because of all that automation. But like some of the stuff, like Chuck, like I mentioned before, when we've talked about it, it's super exciting to get the opportunity to be able to turn that light on and off with your phone or whatever it is, and like take that excitement and turn it into something that makes that useful for you. Because like what I do in the morning, turning on the hot water boiler every morning, or having the lights come on in the branches, having that come on at sunset, like those are small things that I have done for various reasons to work through my day. And what you find that will work in your day is going to be totally different. And I'm always interested in what other people are doing to find out, like when I think Jeff, you asked me something about IFT for your air conditioner when we were setting up your air conditioner. And that was one of the things I was very interested in, was how you were using it with your AC unit to make sure that you were keeping your place an acceptable temperature. So I'm always interested in what other people are doing, because I can find something like that out and then bring it home and adapt it to something else at my house. Like I can hook up IFT and Echobee and do something cool with heating when I need the heat to come back on again.
This is not going to be the last MacJury we do on Internet of Things devices, because there's so many things here. And I'm going to leave it, and we're not going to go down this rat hole. We'll save this for the next time. But I think it's fascinating because, Kelly, you were really into the if this then that thing. You drug Jeff down that direction. I really haven't gone that much in that direction. I've done primarily the voice control, and because that's much more interesting to me than having some of the other stuff because I don't feel like my patterns are such that I need that.
Yeah. We need to talk more at some point because once you realize that you can do the voice control thing, like with your Echo, and link that into IFT, it suddenly becomes this very cool thing because now you're controlling devices in a way that you didn't think was possible before.
We'll take you to IFT school, Chuck.
This means I've got to go. We got to wrap this show up because I've got to go to my second job that's helping me pay for the Internet of Devices things that these two make me buy.
No, I want to point out that it's Kelly that makes you buy them. She's the enabler in this.
It's
in this
me.
group.
Yeah.
I'm the enabler because I tell you about it and I tell you how great it is, and then I cheer you on.
Yeah.
Like, I think Jeff, didn't I look them up on Best Buy in Boulder or something and tell you that they had them?
You were awful.
I really was. I freely admit I really was. In fact, whenever Jeff calls me for something, like I don't say, "Hi, Jeff." I say, "I'm sorry." And he's like, "You should be." Now let me tell you the thing that I called you about. Yeah. It totally happened.
Kelly Guimont pusher. So, Kelly, where can we find you when you're not troubleshooting IoT devices and causing me to go out and spend money?
When I'm not running up Chuck's Visa, you can find me on Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, generally on Wednesdays with Jeff. And you can also find me on Greetings from the Uncanny Valley, which is the Westworld podcast I do with Don Melton. And the rewatch is gearing up. We've recorded a couple of episodes of that now, and those are going to start coming out again. And you can find me writing stuff up on Mac Observer, like the article I will that we will link to for some of the high-level steps for troubleshooting your home automation devices and getting that stuff under control. Like, I have a basic checklist that I wrote up at Mac Observer. So,
excellent. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
It's
it was
always,
so much fun.
Always a lot of fun. Mr. Gamet, she gave you a build-up on the daily observations. What else would you like to add to your mini list of things?
All right. So in addition to doing Mac Observer's Daily Observations Monday through Friday, I get to work with an amazing group of people at macobserver.com. And I do Apple Context Machine every Wednesday with Brian Chaffin and a slew of other podcasts, all different kinds of places. But then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm Jay Gamet, both places.
So nobody's going to have any trouble finding either one of you if they want to ask questions, comments. What can I say,
I'm on Twitter
guys?
as Verso, so if you've got some money burning a hole in your pocket, hit me up and I'll tell you how to spend it.
Great. Do not make that connection. No way. Thank you both for being here and for taking so much time. And in case that wasn't evident along the way, we had a couple Skype issues, so we'll try to smooth those over in the release version. But, the information is all there. With that, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the MacJury on MacVoices. We will be back with more soon, and this will not be the last time you hear about Internet of Things devices on this show. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.